Hey, it's Chris, it's Jamplay, and it's week 10 for Fretboard Roadmap. We have spent 10 weeks going over 3 on a string scales and talking about positioning, talking about techniques, talking about sequencing, talking about making music over different tonal centers, using the 3 on a string scales as a tool to be able to play all up and down the neck. These 3 on a string scales have provided the fretboard roadmap that we've been talking about, and this isn't the only map that you can use. You can use the cage system, you can use pentatonic scales, you can use whatever, but the 3 on a string scales are unique in that they are really, in many cases, symmetrical outlines of the major scale. And so it allows you to sort of easily approach playing in different parts of the neck over different tonal centers, and they're just fun. So over the course of the first 7 weeks, we looked at each one of the positions. And what I'm going to do before we do anything else is review those 7 positions. So here's what we did in week 1. Again. Here is the sequence that was attached to week 1. Again, simple 16th note pattern where 2 of the notes are repeated, and we descend while ascending and ascend while descending. A lot of music right in there. All right, next, week 2 is starting on A. Again. And here's the sequence that went along with starting on A for week 2. You could do it legato or you could pick it all. Sounds good. Sounds good either way. To me, this provides a lot of music. And last week, when we were working specifically with sequences, we looked at ways to take pieces of this sequence and combine it with one of the later sequences to make for some really nice runs, if you remember. Week 3, starting on B. And the sequence? Here, we simply took each string and duplicated it, using legato as our primary vehicle for getting around. It's an ascending run. Oops. That's it. Another great one that's fun to use in pieces. Something like that. Week 4, starting on C. And for the sequence, here we practiced consecutive picking. So I've been doing alternate picking when practicing the scale. This is the same scale, no sequence really, but what we're doing is we're doing consecutive, which means when we cross a string and we're going this direction, we are picking down. When we cross a string and we're going this direction, we're picking up. Observe. It's a really efficient way to work sometimes. All right. And week 7. No. That was week 4. Now we're on week 5. Here we go. This one is probably the most symmetrical and easiest to play, I think, starting on D. And here's the sequence. This is a great sequence. It's a descending sequence, and it goes over this pattern per string. If your watch doesn't get in the way, you can go all the way down. Works great legato or picked. I usually use a little bit of legato in there regardless. Week 6. Starting on E. A simple one, but it's the most difficult for me to remember for some reason. And the sequence? Here we simply descend the string as we ascend the scale. Week 7. Here's the scale. Oops. Symmetrical. Very symmetrical because you've got the same fingerings on these sets, on this set, and this set. 1 2 4 1 2 4 1 3 4 1 3 4 1 3 4 or 1 2 4, but different fret grouping. the sequence, we simply play each note twice, which is a great phrasing thing to be able to do. Good for your alternate picking. We talked at length about this on one of the weeks, where this is some simple phrasing thing that you can do it's so easy to do, and it can add so much to your playing, and we did a lot of demonstration of that in earlier ones. So here's the sequence again. Okay, and what we've done is we've spent time workshopping and woodshedding, showing you how to practice those scale patterns and those sequences. We broke the metronome out, we broke out drone tracks, and we broke out specific backing tracks per week that were centered around the tone that we were starting on. So we had a track that was in the key of G, but tonally centered around B. So we got to experiment with all different types of tonalities and sounds, and it's been a lot of fun. What we're doing this week is we're bringing it all together. For the past couple of weeks, we haven't been introducing any new scale patterns, but we spent time just working on the scales and connecting the patterns up and down the neck. Then the next week after that, we worked on honing in on using the sequences and some of the scales over different tonal centers than they originally taught. So, in other words, we could take this sequence, that one from starting on D, and we could apply it to a different scale position. And it works. So we worked on that. Lastly, which is week 10, and it's this week, we're going to be kind of taking everything and saying, since everything's now available, since we spent the last 10 weeks working on this stuff, let's try to be as musical as we can. Believe it or not, this means playing less. It means that we've gotten away from, for the most part, this sort of idea, where we're playing full scales or we're playing linear sorts of things, and we're being inspired by these sequences, by these patterns, by connecting them, and we're going to slow down. We're going to focus on taking things from the sequences and taking things from the scales and creating lines, creating repeatable, singable, speakable sorts of lines. So that's the project for today. Any of the tracks are workable, and we're going to start with week 1's track, just because I think we're just going to go down the line and get to as much of it as feels right. So here's starting on G, here's the track. If you want to see position implementations or specific sequence implementations, then go back to the previous 2 weeks. This week, having reviewed all of those, we're borrowing from them now. We've matured into, and this will take some time for those of you who are learning these for the first time, but we've matured into not needing to play the whole scale all the time. We might take a run, a 4-string sort of run to set up a note, but really we're into creating singable, hookable, memorable lines. Are there any questions or comments before we get started with these examples?
No questions in quite yet here.
Okay. All right, so starting on G. You guys are well acquainted with these tracks? Now, remember, we can use any scale position as long as we focus around the tone G. It doesn't have to be this one. So I could start here, which is this part of the starting on D. But it's because we're focusing around the tonal center of G, it could work. So let's just, I'm not going to say I'm going to start in any one position. I'm going to listen for something, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start humming maybe even just start speaking a rhythm. I'm going to start with a rhythm, and then I'm going to start humming a melody, and then I'm going to use the scales and sequences as a vehicle to translate it to the guitar. I like that. Okay, so the track changes there. So that was a good start. Let's just take that for now. Now I can choose any position. It's cool. Do I want to do it lower? That's off the starting on A position. I think we should start low and then go high. So that's the starting on E position. Let's try it. So there's the sort of B section here. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to practice high, see what happens. Let's come up with something there. Da, 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 da. Let's see. Da, 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 da. I like that. All right, so some of that really worked, and sometimes I screwed it up. But that's okay. This is the approach we want to take. Speak something, sing it, figure it out on the guitar, figure out how to play it in multiple parts of the neck using the different scale patterns, and become memorable with it. Right there is a much more interesting solo. even if I didn't do any other frills around the little melodies I came up with, than just playing the scales. This is how you implement them. This is how you want to think about practicing. Questions?
We have a question from DTC here.
Mm-hmm.
Will you be instructing similar classes such as this class in other keys?
No. We're gonna this whole class we've stayed in G, so that we could illustrate the idea of playing over different tonal centers. Right now we're gonna play over a track that is based off of A, but we're still in the key of G. If you take my course Rhythm and Harmony and take this course, you will have the tools to take anything that we did and change keys and do the exact same stuff. You'll be able to play in any key using the 300-string scales. So I probably won't do the same sort of stuff again in a different key. We've stuck with G because it's a lot of times by putting creative limitations on yourself, you are able to learn better and focus in and hone in on the real point of what's needing to happen. And that's exactly what we did here. It would complicate things if we went out and did different keys. Any other questions?
That's it for right now.
Okay, starting on A. Here's the track. Okay. Very pronounced rhythm. So we'll probably want to get away from that. Counters the groove a little bit. No wrong answer, really. Just come up with something that jives against the track. Okay, we could. Why not start on A, right? Practice playing the rhythm. See what I did? I'm just experimenting with part of the scale and trying to implement the rhythm I just spoke. All over. Oops. Let's go to a different position, see if we can be inspired with anything else. da, da, da. All started with that. I can't express or overemphasize what I'm saying. It starts with the rhythm, then it starts with the little melody. And these scales and these sequences are simply ways, they're a language, they're a tool for you to get what you're hearing in your head translated to the guitar and then expand upon it. Shall we move on? Starting on B. Okay, this one's going to be. I want to do something different than the track, you know? That'll pull nicely if I can pull it off. Ugh. Pulls against the track, but I think it'll work. Let's just start simple with a note. Kick drum works, makes that work. I'm liking this. So it took a while to really get something that felt right there. And some of these are going to be that way. But don't give up. That deviated a little bit from my original speaky melody that I used, but I hope you can see how I'm using the scales. I hope you can see how I'm using them in a very simplistic, sort of pieced together way, going anywhere I want, using them. Don't start using these by just simply shredding over them and playing a bunch of sequences. This is the way. Once you're past the point of needing to learn them and know them and be comfortable playing them, use the technique and the confidence you've developed in the scales as a way to help you dial back and simplify and come up with things that are really cool and listenable. Then add that stuff into taste, add the faster sequencing and licks and riffs into taste. That's the way you want to pursue these. Starting on C. Seems like a cool melody. See? Yet another example. Stick with singing and speaking. Play what's inspired. Use the sequences and the scales as vehicles. Week 5. Week 5. Any questions or comments?
We do have several questions.
Oh, let's take some questions.
Okay. This first one is from Moxie Pants. So if we don't change keys, is there any way to alter the scale?
It's probably best not to worry about altering the scale right now. In the context of what we're doing, there's so much here. There's so much music that we're in the key of G, but you can see that we're altering the sound of the scale drastically. I mean, we just did 4 examples, all of which sound like completely different genres, completely different music. They sound like different scales, even though it's all the G major scale. So I guess the altering that we're doing is that we're starting and implementing different tonal centers. But we don't want to start changing notes, at least right now. Remember what I said about creative limitations. Let's work within these limitations so that we can learn to be creative with a little bit, and then worry about altering stuff later.
Okay, this one's from Timothy, K21. When you say it doesn't matter what scale you use as long as you center your phrase around the tonality, does that mean you should always end your phrase on the tonality? Like always ending a phrase on A when you're in the key of A?
Oh, no. Let me clarify 2 things. I think you can use whatever scale. You can use whatever scale pattern that we've used in this course. And no, you don't necessarily, I mean, that's a great way to make it strong if you're playing over the A tonality, start and end on A. But when we went over each week, and you can watch the archives if you haven't, but like if you go back to starting on A, which was week 2, we covered that sort of thing. Like there are strong notes under each tonality that you're going to find when you experiment, and that might be A. But in that case, it might also be C or, F sharp is a really strong one in starting on A. So you're going to find, and in those first 7 weeks, I had you naming your notes so that you could keep in mind, oh yeah, that E note does sound really good over A, or that F sharp, man, that sounds unique to starting on A. And then store that away. So if you're playing in the key of G, starting on A with the tonality of A, that the notes A, E, and F sharp sound really, really awesome. But that's all. I covered that in the previous weeks. But simply covering it isn't going to give you the I can do it. It's going in and using this information and really woodshedding it and training your own ears around this stuff. That's going to be the key. No pun intended.
All right, this one's from Walt. And
Hi, Walt.
Walt's question is, so you're playing in the key of G, but soloing around the key the jam track is in?
Very good question. Let me clarify. I am playing in the key of G the whole time. But I'm altering the tonal center. So we're starting on A, or the tonal center is in A. So I'm playing and it's in, even though we're starting on A, or even though we're in the tonal center of A, we're still using the notes from the key of G, which are G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. But we're just saying A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A. And that's what happens when we play this scale. We're in the key of G. But it creates a unique sound when we are in the key of G and we focus our ear on A. That's what the tracks are doing. They're all in G, but they're starting, or they're focusing their tonality on different notes in the G major scale, which is really cool. This is how a lot of music is done. A lot of interesting sounds come out of this.
All right, next one is from Edwards Keith. Hey, Chris, love your sounds. What advice would you give a beginner about getting the most out of practice, and do you have a beginner course on electric?
I do have a beginner course on electric. It's the most recent one is an archived live course, and it's Guitar 101, Guitar 102, Guitar 103, and Guitar 104. So there's essentially 40 weeks, wow, of beginner material there. So I would start there if you're a beginner. And the cool thing about that course is it gives you weekly advice on how to practice everything that is taught. But I would say to get the most out of practice for a beginner, the key really is to not take on too much. Focus on one thing at a time. So, if you're watching this course and you're enjoying it, but maybe you feel like you need to go back and cover some of the basics, go back and take the Guitar 10X lessons, and don't really do much else. I mean, you can listen to some songs and learn little songs here and there, but go back and really work on the fundamentals. And don't spend a lot of time perusing and watching other videos. Focus in on that. Do the guided practice. Put your time in there, and don't allow yourself to get distracted by information overload. information overload is the easiest thing that takes down guitar players these days, because they become more focused on taking in information than they do applying the little information, than applying a little bit. And that's harder now because there's so much information, but it is very beneficial. Less information, more practicing, more playing, more experimenting. And then also, everything you do, practice being musical.
Okay, and this one's from Rob D. Birch. I really enjoyed this class. Will there be a fretboard roadmap too?
And Rob, I just want to say thank you for your badge submissions. I can tell, man, you've done great. Great. We are talking about doing a follow-up to this course. And I'd like to do it. We'll just see how, whatever, the other things that are scheduled and some other things that are going on, but I would love to do a follow-up to this course. And I already have the general idea of the direction I'd want to take it as well. So you guys will be the first to know when we do something like this. But yeah, I've enjoyed this, and I've enjoyed the interaction and the feedback and the badges that people have done. It seemed like a very interactive and well-targeted course at our members. So one of the best, I think. So yes, hopefully there will be a follow-up.
Okay, that's it for the moment.
Okay, starting on D. Da, 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 da. It's a lot like the da, 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 da. Done that too. Let's do something different. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da 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 da. That pulls nicely against the track. There it is. Simple, simple rhythm to start it, and then bring in other things around it. Nothing quite as fun as that. Starting on E. Not D, E. Let's go for a slower melody this time. Da 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 da. Let's figure it out up there. That worked out really nicely. Okay, and starting on F sharp. This one's always the toughest. Maybe a slow one here too. Da 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 da. That's not even right. definitely harder, but da 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 da. Rhythm. Rhythm combined with knowing how to move around the fretboard is what grants you the freedom to solo and to come up with things that are musical and fun. Guys, I've really enjoyed this course. Are there any other questions, comments, or anything that you want to say before we call it a good 10 weeks?
And we got one more question here from Moxie Pants. If I don't have a rhythm track behind me, is it the same approach for chords as well, like finding cool sounding combinations within the scale in different positions?
Yeah. And check out the drone tracks, because the drone tracks will kind of do that. They'll give you the flexibility to come up with your own sort of rhythm and chords behind the track using a starting on A or starting on D approach. But absolutely, if you don't have a rhythm track behind you, I would recommend starting with something like the drone without any rhythm at all when you're getting familiar with the fretboard. But when we're talking about phrasing, rhythm is an extremely important thing. And so if a track isn't helping you set the rhythm, make sure that you, as the guitar player, are setting some sort of rhythm there so it doesn't sound totally. And sometimes it's okay to have an absence of rhythm, but I think that's an exception and not something that you always just do. That absolutely. Check out the drone tracks are very helpful for that. Okay, guys. Thank you for joining me on Fretboard Roadmap. Thank you for taking in all of the different scale positions and patterns and sequences and exploring the amount of music, the vast amount of music you can make with these scales. I really enjoyed it. Go back and check out the archives if you missed a week, and follow the guided practice. Download the tracks, download the tab, and practice away. And send me any private messages you may want to as you dive into this stuff. Talk to you later.